again, Barbara Sutwide Weiler, it's like, congratulations on the Humans Being More Award. What an outstanding, excellent achievement and recognition. Well, we all know Mike DiMuccio, and he puts on some incredible events, and he likes to do things first class, and this was no exception. I mean, it was wonderfully done. It was just overall, it's. I was impressed how smooth it went. We've created something new, DiMuccio time, which means, well, when your time is up, your time is up. And and it ran so smooth that every speaker had his allotted time. Sometimes they were actually shorter, but nobody ran overtime. And it was one of the few events that I've ever been to that happened. So it was very impressive. On top of that, of course, we had two guest speakers there, Bob Proctor and Richard Bliss Brooks, that both were highlights on Friday and Saturday night, or Saturday evening. And then a wonderful gala celebration for the award ceremony, the first Humans Being More ceremony. And I'm going to let Barb Sutterwide talk about that a little bit more, because she knows how it feels and how it looks like. I had it in my hand, but I don't want to spoil, the revealing, because it was something special. Of course, we had fun, as Linda mentioned. On Sunday, a busload of us. Actually, we had two buses because there's more people that wanted to go. So we had Mike had to hire a second bus, and we went down to Niagara Falls, Niagara on the Lakes, and had toured a vineyard to taste some of the Canadian ice wine, which was really nice. And of course, some of us, took the liberty to literally fly over the Niagara Falls. So Mike DiMuccio and Ben Woodward and his wife, and I did zip lining, which was a lot of fun. Thank goodness the rain stopped.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
but it was awesome. Overall, when I look at it, I said, this was an event that was worth the caliber of what Nikken represents as a leader in natural energy products in the world, and a reflection of the incredible humans being more in Nikken. And truly, the whole event, coined as as a Humans Being More Summit, is a brainchild of Mike DiMuccio, and it is a celebration of achievements and of a representation of what people are bringing to the world through Nikken. And I truly have to say it was an expression that was far beyond what I thought of an event, and it was filled with pride and with awe and with a lot of hope and realizing that the best is yet to come in Nikken. And I think that was overall, something that a sentiment that resonated with everybody that was attending it. And I know from the posts and things that we hear out there that it also resonates out into the field. And it was good that we had, of course, a global contingency there, people from Europe and Latin America, all over the United States and Canada. And it was also good to know that the event was, for example, it was designed for 200 people, and it was over 220 people that showed up. So he had to actually get a bigger room, and he had to expand things. So that's always good, and well, and again, if you look at it, the event was as elegant as Mike DiMuccio's clothes.
daughter's clothes, right?
And oh my goodness, well, yeah, the Muccio family did not hold back.
Nice. So what do you think about the new ground, the Nikken Ground product?
Well, I'm very excited about the new Nikken Ground for several reasons. It's something that I've actually looked at about 10 years ago. I said, oh, this would really fit into Nikken's product line. And when it was revealed, I was like, yes, this is awesome. You know, if you look at some of the I mean, you can Google grounding or earthing and find a whole bunch of information, even studies and all that. But basically, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a friend of walking barefoot. I love walking barefoot, and I love being on the ground. I can't imagine, anybody going to the beach and wearing shoes, and I'm still shocked, how many people actually do that with sneakers or sandals or what. It's like we're connected to the earth, or our connection to earth is important as breathing, meaning, that for as long as humans and mammals exist, we were grounded, literally grounded to the earth by having direct contact to the earth. We walked on the earth barefoot, we slept on the earth with our body. And so when you look at it, we have a negative charge that comes from the earth. And if you want me to go into a little bit into detail, because I love details.
Yes,
so
please.
Here's the interesting thing. The sun rays, the sun rays are pretty strong, and we have a shield around the earth. We know that there's a magnetic field and there's different fields, but there's also what's called the ionosphere. Now, within the ionosphere, there's something that happens because the rays are so strong that they actually split molecules into two. So they split it into positive charged ions and negative charged ions. And the negative charged ions, they're usually transported to the earth, mostly through lightning, actually. And so we know that when there's a lightning storm, and so that the earth is filled stronger with negative ions, as with waterfalls and so forth. So, the interesting thing is the positive charged ions, they stay actually in this ionosphere. This ionosphere is 60 miles above the earth. So, what is important for us is the negative ions. Why are they so good? So they kind of, and we know that from Nikken, from negative ions that are created through the Kenko air or any of our air products. So the negative ions are important because they are kind of like a natural antioxidant. So when we are in direct contact with the surface of the earth, our body receives a charge of energy that makes us feel better fast. And that's basically it. And it's similar. It's like just, as the sun gives us warmth and vitamin D, the earth gives us like also food, water, and if we walk, sit, or stand, play, build on the earth, whatever we do, it's a kind of an eternal, natural, and gentle energy. And we can maybe call this vitamin G, for grounding. So, but what does that mean to you? You may know the difference between feeling good and not so good as having little or a lot, as compared to having a little or a lot of energy, or sleeping well, not sleeping well. Well, if you can't really see the Earth's energy, and we know that, we can't see magnetism and all that, but people can feel the warmth and the tingling and the pleasant sensation, when they're walking barefoot, especially along a beach or so, or if you're going over some dew moist grass or so. It's just something that's really that's important to us. And when you look at it, grounding literally means putting your bare feet on the ground. That's what that means. And also, because of these the charges that are there, the Earth is filled with electrons, and these electrons then are absorbed through our feet and are able to go through our body. Now, a unfortunate thing happened, and if we look at that, 95% of human beings walk insulated. on the surface of the earth. And one of the things that is interesting is when we look back, there are certain inventions that actually have triggered certain events. Now, if we look back, for example, when did a lot of the inflammatory related health disorders start? When did that actually all happen? If you look back.
I think when a lot of it started with the, oh, this is probably the wrong answer, but the fat-free, when we started doing more sugar.
Well, yeah, and with the refining of sugar and flour and all those things, another invention actually came along, I think around 1906 or so, and that was the invention or the usage of rubber. And so when we look at it, a lot of people use sneakers and they use rubber-soled shoes. Now, that also coincides with actually the start of or is maybe one of the single most important events, if you look at it, that actually has rang in the increase in inflammatory-related health disorders. So, I mean, it shows how important or how much we are linked. Now, in Nikken, we know you put an insole in your shoe and you can kind of balance that out. But on the other hand, there is a complexity that we cannot, because we're only using a magnetic field. And the magnetic field is very important because it simulates what we are missing. And that was, I think, a very important thing. Now, this is something in addition. Oftentimes, we like to walk barefoot at home, or we like to slip our shoes off, we do because, sometimes it's uncomfortable, especially for long periods of times. And especially it probably has to do with more of the exposure to electromagnetic fields coming from your cell phones, from your computers, from building structures that are insulated, that do not have, as we know, we have up to 16 times higher electromagnetic fields that we're exposed to in homes and at work than when we step outside. And as it is important for us as human beings, we need to be in contact with the earth, and that, of course, is a big problem. And so what we find with this, and there's an interesting movie, if anybody ever wants to look at it, it's called Earthing. It kind of describes it. It's interesting. It's about I think a man that was in Alaska. He had some back pains. The doctors didn't know what to do, and what he did, he laid actually literally naked underneath his house on the direct surface of the earth, and within a short period of time, he got better. Now, that's nothing new, because I mean, even the ancient or the American Indians knew, the Native Americans knew, that the importance of earthing, and the importance, especially of the healing powers of the earth for us as human beings. So I think it's a great accomplishment, from Nikken to bring this in line with our product assortment, because it fits in with the wellness home, and the pad that Nikken, the Kenko Ground that is offered is a smaller pad. It's 18 by 36 inches, and it can be used in multiple ways. You can sit on it, you can stand on it. You can sleep with it and especially what you want to do is you want to have anything where you can get your feet close to it, and that's very helpful.
So it's the foot, it's having the feet or the soles of the feet closest to it is
I think would be the most important, because the way that you absorb things, and we all know reflexology, and reflexology then again is connected to a lot of the organ systems within the body. So when we then take this energy that is coming from the surface of the earth and is actually moved through, and this is important, you have to plug this mat in through the grounding part of the plug in your wall. So that's the big hole, not the two little holes. Don't touch those, and it won't fit in there. So you don't want to go there, but you want to put it in that third hole, and that kind of like connects it to the earth outside. It's like the grounding wires, like the lightning rod. And that's what it does. It actually connects with the surface of the earth, and thereby immediately charges it and lets the body then use and absorb all this energy that then can work on individual organs in the body. It kind of works on the whole body, but can specifically help with any organ structures, cellular structures. And it's interesting if you look at it, if you go to a microscopic level and you go down, 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 and you see how a cell looks like, well, there's a lot of structures within the microscopic level that you see, oh, there's all these cell structures and these parts of the cell, but then there's this space between them. And I think that's the most important part, because when you look at it, the body is electrical. And that means that it is that we have a lot of electrical conduction going on, especially when it comes, to the impulses that make the heart rhythm go or the brain function. So we know that the body is electrical, and thereby this can be very soothing, relaxing, helpful, balancing, and it is something that just does us good because it is good, and it's because we know it. It's like the magnetic field, it's just an addition to that.
So I guess the cord is long enough because, if you're going to put it down by your feet, to have to go all the way back up to the top of your bed.
Right.
Did you look at the cord, how long it is? I'm analytical too.
It's a long cord. I don't know the length of it, but it's a pretty long cord. So you'll always should be able to find an outlet wherever you are.
Okay. Yeah, because I want to sleep with a cord. Yeah. Go ahead, Barbara.
I was just thinking about the reflexology because who was saying put it in the bottom of your bed for your legs, but I'm going, well, that would be one area to get it, but if you have your bottoms of your feet on the pad, it's going to help, balance out all the meridians in your body, right, and all the connections, because the hands and the feet are the densest of all those conduit, for lack of a better word, but yeah. So, are you thinking of like under your desk, Igor, versus sitting on it? Because it's your skin, right? That's got to be on the pad. Yeah,
it's important that you have your skin touching the pad. I mean, of course, you can use it in multiple ways, and I know that we as Nikken distributors will do that. We'll find all kinds of ways to use it, and then we will reveal our experiences to others. But generally, what is because of the way the energy is absorbed through our feet, and that can help specific functions of our organs. The grounding supports the body as a whole, but specifically as the organs down to its tissue. And then, of course, the cellular function of the entire body. And that's why, it's like the importance of walking barefoot on the beach, walking barefoot outside, wherever you can. The more you can do it, the better. And it's the same thing when you're at home, when you're on the computer, especially, we have a lot of sitting activities. We sit like in cars, and that's like a Faraday cage, which means you're bouncing your cell phone energy around in there, and it affects your brain when you do that. So you should always crack your window when you actually have the phone on. Not that you should be having your phone on.
But wait a minute. So Igor, if you're in the car and you have your grounding pad.
No grounding pad in the car.
No grounding pad in the car.
No.
Oh, because you can't plug it in. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it would look odd with the wire outside in the street stuck in the asphalt. It would look really funky.
Okay, but so I was thinking yesterday, I was on my laptop on my couch doing a lot of entry. I'm like, man, I wish I had it now. But so I was imagining at the time putting it under the laptop, but actually I'd have it under my feet.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you want it underneath your feet while you're sitting on your laptop. You want to have it under your feet when you sit and watch TV, and you want to have it on your feet when you're laying down. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't try it otherwise. I mean, you can try sitting on it, because you'll see often pictures of people sitting on the pad. But ideally, it's having the bare skin touched to it. So now I don't know if you have your elbows on it, like if you have your elbows on it while you're working.
Ah.
You know, if that might do something, I mean, it might be worth trying.
Can I ask something? So we all have our car seats around, and I mean, I have mine here. I'm on my iPad. Now, would I then have it under? Is there any? I mean, everything's fortifying us. Everything's protecting us to some degree.
Mhm.
But this is a different. I guess I'm trying to understand the different energy that the
Right.
magnetics.
So your question would be, and I've been asked that, you know, what's the difference actually between the magnetism and the grounding?
To put them together. Like I still have the other things on. Is that okay too?
Well, I would definitely say so. I mean, like in the car, we definitely need the car seat, you know, because of how the car works as a Faraday cage, and I would still use my Kenko seat on my computer,
Right.
as well as the Kenko Ground.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things, you know, I have not utilized the grounding pad yet, so I can't tell you. And so I am generally somebody, I have to see it to believe it. So I will be testing it when I receive it, which should be sometimes mid-November. By that time, I do hope that then they can be ordered again, because as of right now, I think they're not. The item code is there, 2200, but if you enter it, it will only charge you for shipping.
Yeah, I saw that. And $5.
Exactly.
I tried it last night again. Can you still order it?
This is Barbara Joseph.
Barbara, go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, thanks. This is a great call. Thank you, Igor and Linda and Barb and everybody.
Hey,
I
Barbara.
did hear last night, I don't remember what call I was on, but October 22nd, I heard that it was going to be up for ordering again, which I think Dee just put in the chat. And also, I love how you finally framed the question in my brain, which I totally agree that there's no contraindication of using all of our magnetic products with the grounding, but I loved how you phrased it. I'm curious analytically, what is the difference between magnetism, our products, and grounding with the Kenko Ground? So I don't know if anybody quite knows how to define that yet, but that was a wonderful way to frame it in one sentence, what my curiosity is.
Well, Barbara, I mean, I'm great that you're bringing that up. I mean, I have some logical explanation, of course, you know, but you know, it's like sensation and feeling is always better than logic, you know, because as with all things, you know, it's like our products work 100%, but they don't always do what you expect them to do. So,
Yeah.
so with that said, when you look at grounding. From what I understand, has to do more with the transference of negative ions, and of course, you know, of energy that comes directly from the Earth, so that we are absorbing certain electrons that are helping our bodies. Now, compared to the magnetic field, which is more a resonance, you know, it's an energy frequency that has a similar effect, or an added effect. I mean, I would not live without magnetic products, and I like I said, it would be interesting to see, well, is there a remarkable difference? But if you look at some of the literature, it seems to do a lot of what we know that magnetic energy can do. But also, what I'm excited about is especially the transference of negative ions, because that's, of course, a very, very important thing, especially now that, you know, we have discontinued our air products, which I relied heavily on because I like them a lot, you know, and I know many of us do. wish that we may, in one form or another, have them brought back. And one of the aspects was, of course, the negative ions that it creates. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this grounding pad can maybe fill that need, for negative ions.
Another thought that I heard last night with Randy Rolfe and Dave Johnson is that, some people are more sensitive, and that the grounding pad might actually calm that down for those individuals that are more sensitive.
Right.
And also going back to how dogs, when they're not feeling well, they would actually dig and create. They don't want to lay in the grass. They want to lay in the dirt, which is in the ground, right? So, it's not about the grass. It's not grassing. It's earthing, grounding.
Earthing, yeah.
The dirt. So this is much cleaner. And those of you that know me, you can go ahead and laugh now.
Well, does that mean that my dogs are going to snatch the pad away now, like they did with other pads?
You better believe it.
I gotta buy more pads.
Yeah, you're going to need about 10.
8. Well, I'm still wanting to ask. So, I'm hearing magnetism is a vibrational frequency to kind of align our bodies. And then the other is the grounding brings another aspect of that to the body. So when you say the negative ions, I immediately go to, the waterfall, the beach, when you walk out on the beach and you take that deep breath and you just, and your whole body just calms and sinks in and just, grounds. But I'm also thinking, on a cellular level, what is that bringing to the body? What is that bringing to us? Another way of balancing ourselves, I guess. I'm just trying to.
Yeah. Okay. So again, if you look at it, the Earth is endowed with electrons, and these electrons are absorbed through our feet. So it's kind of, taking a whole bunch of antioxidants that we're absorbing through our feet. That's one way to look at it. The other thing is, as human beings, we're of course totally dependent on the Earth, but of course we have managed to isolate ourselves entirely. So, and an aspect that I look at is, for example, the way we've isolated ourselves through our footwear and a disconnect from Earth. So it's this absorption of electrons and the negative ions, because it has a similar effect as when we walk on the direct surface of the Earth, and then we receive a charge of energy that makes us feel better faster. So, and it's kind of also, like I explained earlier, the sun gives us warmth and vitamin D, and then, grounding, we could just call it vitamin G. It's kind of a catching point, to get people's attention. And basically, it's always, we're trying to bring people closer to Earth, closer to simplicity, closer to things that they actually are empowered to do something for themselves. And I think every aspect that we can help them to do that. And I liked what you mentioned earlier from last night's call, because it's an aspect that I didn't even think about, because we have people that have sensitivity towards magnetism, and that this is actually something that I actually have not heard. And I think besides, somebody has an adverse reaction to sand and beaches, then.
This is Carol, and Jeff Isom, when he was introducing this, he was talking about why do we have grounding, the grounding prong, and that's because when energy is too much, it needs to be grounded. And what he explained when he was explaining the pad was that the EMFs and the energy that's all around us that is not helpful to our body, that is actually dangerous, this grounds, this takes that and grounds it out of us. It takes it right into the ground. Whereas our magnetics are giving us the energy that's in the vibrational frequency that we need from the earth. So it's taking the excess that's damaging, that will have us explode if we have too much, if we don't ground our electrical, if it's not at the frequency it's okay, that will cause fires and stuff, it takes it and grounds it. So that it's a protection for us of the EMFs and the antioxidants and all that or the things that we don't want, I guess.
Like
Can I-
lightning.
can I
It
just
was
add-
first created the lightning to not blow up our electricity in the house, right?
Yes.
This is Barb Satterwhite, and Igor, I love what you've just been telling us, and I never thought of it as transferring the negative ions to us, because what I was hearing was the ability of the pad to take away, as Carol said, the EMF, the bad energy. The hard part is the word negative can confuse people.
Right.
Negative ions from the earth, but if it's transferring those, I was thinking it was just getting rid of. But it makes sense now that I think about it. So it's transferring negative ions to us, but it's transferring negative EMFs away from us.
And it's interesting, we had, Barbara, I think that's a great point. I remember Roger Drummer, he had a great explanation about it. The kind of, looking at it from a shielding standpoint.
Yeah.
As much as there is like if you have used the lightning rod principle, that it kind of takes things away that are too much. But it equally creates, for example, the magnetic energy. He says, well, that is actually what happens. And if you would, let's say, do a Kirlian photography of a person on the beach or somewhere standing in nature, there is clearly a larger energy field that can be seen, just because it's kind of like shielding. And that shielding effect has, of course, the effect that it bounces off the EMFs that we're exposed to. But I think, Carol, what you said is also correct, because we're touching, for example, a computer and then we're exposed to it. So what happens, we can be shielded from it, but it also goes in our body. And I think that's a great explanation also, that it can be absorbed and carried out. So
Because
it goes both ways.
So this is
He also mentioned that, if you don't plug it in, it acts as a shield anyway. So if you put it on your lap, if you have your laptop on your lap, and I kept thinking, wow, look at the pregnant women, if while they're working on their phones and whatnot, if they just at least put this over their lap or over their tummy. So it acts as a shield when it's not plugged in. But when you plug it in, it's taking away the EMF energy. So
Because it is 20% silver.
Right.
And to add to that, this is Dee. Randy Rolfe on her morning call yesterday talked about magnetism as an energy of alignment, which is sort of what you had said, Barbara, as well. And I remember talking to a Chinese pain management MD when I first started in Nikken, asking if he had magnetic therapy, and he said, my people have used it for thousands of years. It balances the body at the cellular level. And so that's the other cool thing about this grounding thing, like you said, Barb, is it's protective. If it's touching our skin when we're using a laptop or whatever, even if it isn't plugged in, it's just not taking the EMFs from our body into the ground until that is plugged in. And I was talking to a young woman yesterday, just asking her if she uses a laptop. She said, rarely. She said, we just use our cell phones now for all their work. So, to have it next to your skin as we're using our phones even can be beneficial. So
it's funny you say that. I'm sitting here thinking, I wish I had it now as I'm holding this phone.
Yep.
Well, it makes me aware of the fact that I just happen to have a grandchild, but also another little gal in my life, and she's 3, and her little pad is her little go-to thing just to be calm with all the adults around. And I'm thinking that if they're sitting on that or laying down on that, because inevitably these teenagers and kids have all these equipment plugged in next to their bed, next to their head. And that is like the worst thing that we can do. And I didn't realize how much, I'm just going to say the word jump, the energy from that can transfer to us even when it's not on. That it's plugged in, charging up is the worst time to have it next to your head. And so I feel like I put on the text message last night, blasting out the call to everybody, and anybody with children, like don't have their little iPads and their things plugged in next to their bed, because, we have another new pandemic coming around about stunting and children being stunted because they're not getting all the avenues of things that they need to grow to be a full being. And so that's going to be my avenue of mission of sharing, Nikken, too, is to be aware of the transference of these items when they're not even being used, just plugged in next to you and happen to be in your bed by your head. So anyway, that I think, too, is to be addressed, right?
Wonderful information, Barbara. Now, help me understand, why is it more dangerous when it's plugged in? I know that sounds crazy for a question, but
that's actually what Randy Rolfe was talking about on the call last night, that when it's plugged, it's on battery, it's not as much energy. But when it's plugged in, it's actually being charged. So that's why it puts off more energy, negative energy.
So this is Gary. A distinction I want to make in terms of some of our words that we're using. And I was bumped off the call, so you may have talked about this, but I think when we're talking to new people and we're talking about negative ions, I think if we add the word charged, as in negatively charged ions, then it takes the sort of good bad out of the conversation. And we know that we're talking about how negatively charged ions are good for us. And by adding the word charged, I think it adds some clarification to what we're talking about.
And Jeff also used the word voltage. It's like pulling the unhealthy voltage out of us into the ground.
Oh, say that again. That was good.
Jeff also mentioned with using the pad when it's plugged in, it's like removing the unhealthy voltage out of our bodies into the ground.
That's good.
So, people associate voltage, I think, more as an unhealthy thing than ions, maybe. So that might be useful. And I'm guessing that at least on the November kickoff call, if not before, Jeff may go in more depth, because some orders will have taken place by then, but they won't be shipped yet. So I would think there'll be more information coming out as we all learn more.
Yeah, I think so too. Personally, I like to keep things, for my own information, I like to know things and to kind of have an idea, but generally I like to use very simple terms, because when simpler I can make it for the person that I'm talking to, and if it's not just an analytical person, then I would try to find some case studies that they can sink their teeth into. Otherwise, I would just go and ask, like Brody likes asking questions, for example. It's like, well, would you agree with me that, for example, being isolated from the earth by non-conductive materials like rubber or plastic, wood, laminate, asphalt, flooring surfaces and so forth, concrete, would you agree, that might have some effects on the way we feel? And when you are in direct contact with the surface of the earth, with your body, let's say barefoot, that there may be some energy charges that make you feel better and faster. Actually, this has been used, in a lot of modalities, like, for example, in ancient Chinese medicine or in ancient cultures that realized and understood the necessity. But in the last 100 years, we kind of have lost sight of these things that were like common sense to us for thousands of years. And we're rediscovering that. Mm-hmm. So I try to get into, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense, and if somebody says, well, what are the benefits, and in our terms, I was more looking at, well, we've got magnetics and we know this for so many years, and now this, what's the difference? I think then we need some distinction in between. But when it comes to talking point, I liked what Barbara Bertucci was saying, about the importance of exposing this to our children, especially mothers or families, that are concerned about the children. Has always been something that I think is something that can pull people in. But on the other hand, because we're such a society is overexposed to electrical equipment, I think it's very helpful, to go in that direction also.
Yeah, and that's where some people say, well, don't you have something I can just wear to protect me? But it wouldn't be plugged in to be grounded.
Yeah, we have magnetics for that. That's wonderful. Thank you for asking.
Okay, good.
You can take it in your car.
Yeah.
You don't need a cable.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking, with the power bands and the other things, it fortifies our energy and our own field in our body per se. And so it's giving us a protectiveness. And I'm just figuring out how to share and do it, because it's going to be like we are going to sit on the pad, or we're going to be on the pad for lack of a better word, for a bit of a treatment, right? For a bit of a fortification or a dumping of the energies that we're getting, a cleansing. Maybe that's a better word, a cleansing for a bout of time. And so now I think when the pads get out in the field, we'll figure out how many times a day, or how, what's that span of time for one treatment or cleansing would be the best, and such like that. And then have the power bands and such on. I think that those power bands and the insoles are tremendous. So this is an adjunct for, I'm thinking, a different type of cleansing. It's an electrical cleanse. So anyway.
Yeah, I can understand how people are going to get well, who do I recommend? Where do I go first with people? What's more important? This is Brainstorm Friday, by the way.
Maybe we need to.
Well,
we need both.
It's interesting. Yeah, we do need both. And I know Randy Ralph has talked about when we're born, we're not asked, okay, do you need air or water or sleep or food? We need it all. So, that might help us integrate the need or the benefits of